Still looking for a good league starter for the Forbidden Sanctum League? You're in the right place. And even if you don't go away with a build guide, you're at least going to get away with a pretty good idea of how to choose your league starter for the upcoming league. Hey, I'm Cyclon. Today I want to share with you my philosophy, or well, my approach to choose the league starter, as well as my top 5 picks league starter for the upcoming league. Now, the two things that I always look at when choosing a league starter. The first thing is my criteria for a league starter. It has to be starting as a low budget, having no real requirements in uniques or gear, just rare gear, resistances, and you're good to go. And then it should scale really well with investment. If you spend more than a divine, or pretty much not even just a divine, or a bit less than a divine even, on any upgrade, it should feel significantly more powerful afterwards. It should also excel at 2 or more of the following: survivability, single target, clear, and on top of that, it should always have a really comfortable movement speed. Now, some builds will be a bit slower, but then they're intentionally a bit slower because they're focusing more on other things. But movement speed is always something nice because it means you get faster through the campaign, you get faster through the maps, you get faster through the content. Always a good thing. And the other three things that it should have at least 2 of is having a survivability. In case, for example, for bossing, it should be really survivable and have a high single target. And for mapping, it should have a good clear. If you're running mob rushers, you should have a good clear and good single target. And if you're, for example, running delirium, you should have a good clear and a good survivability with a decent single target. Like, every league starter can be broken down into these compartments. And if everything there is good, then it's most likely a very good league starter. Of course, again, considering the low budget. And lastly, it should also be really good at leveling. It should just not be a really powerful once you're in maps, but it should also be really powerful when it isn't set up properly yet. It should have a smooth campaign, it should have some skill jump setup that you can easily transition from into the league starter, for example, starting with Storm Blast Mines, Orb of Storm, then getting into Wave of Conviction Ignite as for an Elementalist, or getting into Lightning Trap for an Aura Bot. Just being able to transition into the setup that is next best leveling until you're on your final setup that you then just improving until end of maps. Right. And the other thing is an approach to choose your league starter, which I think a lot of people are just, oh, this build is popular, I'm going to play that. You should always look at it from either of these standpoints. Either choose your start, choose your progress, your path, or choose your finish line, and then adjust the other two accordingly. For example, you really enjoy a specific playstyle for fast mapping or specific build, Lightning Arrow, for example. Let's take that. What strategy is Lightning Arrow good that you can set a reasonable high goal for it? For example, Lightning Arrow is a really good mapper. So you could say, okay, my goal is my starter's Lightning Arrow, my path, my strategy is Beyond, Breach, and Legion, and the goal is getting a Headhunter as quick as possible, and after that a Mage Blood. Now, with its starter, doing the path is pretty easy, so the goal is reachable. Now, of course, it always relies on time investment. Not everybody's going to be able to just take this example I just said and go to the finish line. Some people might take a week if they're really good. Other people might take a month or maybe even 3 months. Just as an example, this is not a guaranteed progress that we're going to work out. The second strategy is to say, okay, I really, really like Legion, Breach, Beyond farming. So I'm going to look for a starter that exits that, for example, again, the Lightning Arrow. And then I'm going to use this strategy to get a goal, again, the Headhunter and maybe the Mage Blood. Well, finally, strategy 3 is you have the goal, I really want a mirror at the end of week 1. I really want to get there. So you're going to choose the best strategy, which, for example, could be farming Delirium and just hyper juice Delirium, getting as quickly as possible into T100 100% Delirium maps, or farming Simulacrums, leveling gems. Maybe those are really good Leaguestart strategies, and then you need a very specific build for that has a very specific playstyle. But always keep in mind that whatever you choose, if you choose a high goal, you need to be comfortable and enjoy the path to the goal and the build you're playing it with. That's why I think method A or method B is better, because in either of these cases, In Method A, you're choosing a Leaguestarter you really enjoy and a strategy that this build excels at, that you can see yourself playing and set your goals accordingly. In Method B, you're taking a strategy you really enjoy and choose a Leaguestarter accordingly that you can deal with, that you can enjoy as well. With Method 3 is just you really want a goal and you have to deal with the Ray and the Leaguestarter that is given to you to get best reach the goal. But that is for some people, so I included it in here. Now with these two, your mindset should be pretty well set to be able to choose a Leaguestarter perfect for your needs. And with that, now let's finally take a look at the top 5 Leaguestarter in my opinion. I should mention that they're not in a particular order, I'm just keeping the two, I think, most interesting picks for last. The first pick is the Righteous Fire Inquisitor. I was considering mentioning his Serial Knives Ignite builds or other dot builds, but I think for the Fire dot department, RF is the most comfortable because it has a very specific playstyle that a lot of people enjoy, which is the Brain AFK mode. You have the Righteous Fire, you enable it, and you start walking. Be it Forbidden Sanctum, where you need to baby dodge a bit, be it a map, be it a boss, you just walk around and stuff will die eventually. There's a good armor, okay block, a good amount of life recovery, it can abuse Aegis with the Melting of Flesh, just having absolute survivability, and it has a good amount of max resistances, as well as being a really good dot build, and basically just a walking simulator with even explosions utilizing Legacy of Fury. And as for an early, before you can use an Aegis, you could also use the Dawnbreaker to be even more tanky. Now, this build is a really enjoyable playstyle for those who, like I said, just want to go AFK, just go into a map and just play it and don't have to worry that they're going to die. Maybe also want to get a high level. Overall, a really nice playstyle for those who enjoy this specific way. Now, as for mobility, it's going to use Shield Charge, and as far as I know, for leveling, it uses Rolling Magma into Armor Brand into Righteous Fire. Now, with the reveal that Wraith of Conviction is currently better than Armor Brand, and might also use Armor Brand. However, I don't know enough about Righteous Fire Inquisitor that I can definitely say this is the way to play it. So if this build is interesting for you, I recommend checking out Pohx. As far as I know, he's the best content creator out there for the Righteous Fire Inquisitor. Getting to build number 2, also pretty much in my opinion at least, auto include in every top 5 builds, the Peacock Pathfinder. Similar to the Righteous Fire, it has a very simple playstyle, which is, in this case, a very quick, simple playstyle. You throw a few flasks until you're kept your Plague Bearer, you enable Plague Bearer, and you run through the enemies until they die, and just keep running until everything's dead, and utilizing Poison Proliferation to clear even better. It has a very high evasion, good armor, spell suppression, and in a trade league you can very easily get your elemental avoidance capped, as well as using life recovery and some bleach to have an overall good sustain, and then also utilizing the Ascendency to have an even better sustain. Overall, just a really, really good build, having access to AoE, proliferation, Plague Bearer, Shield Charge for mobility, and it can even level its Poisonous Concoction, which is something people really enjoy, leveling with the build they're using in the end game. Overall, a really good package for Forbidden Sanctum again, for simple mapping, for Harbinger farming, for Breach farming, and as far as I know, can also do some simple bossing or invitations. So overall, really good build. And if you're interested in this, I think the best content creator for this build out there is Palsteron, but in this case I might be wrong. It's just the best best guide of this I've seen so far. Might be somebody that made an even better guide. Just trying to point in the direction, not saying this is the best direction. Coming to build number 3, which is the last auto include in the top builds. Most likely too many of you will already have heard too much about this. Seismic Trap is back again as a top bossing build, with one exception. It's the best balanced bosser. There's another bosser that is Eye of Winter Miner, which absolutely annihilates bosses, but it sacrifices everything for that. It sacrifices clear, it sacrifices survivability, mapping potential. It's just a really, really strong boss killer. While Seismic Trap is a really good balanced build. It has a decent clear, it has absurd survivability, that it's a build that is used by the hardcore runner. They are racing, that are getting to the bosses as quick as possible while surviving and still being able to kill those bosses. Just a really, really strong build. On top of that, the poison, there were elemental variants, and for if you place an overboard, elemental is still a good option, but I think poison for solo play is a better option. Just having high armor, good evasion, spell suppression, max resistance, life recovery by throwing traps, having the automated damage from the seismic trap where you just throw them and then just walk around by throwing a few exsanguinate mines here and there, and then having Blade Trap on top as a swap. And for instead of Exsanguinate, you can use Blade Trap with Withering Touch to have an even easier bossing time. Having Mink's Heart, having Cold Iron Point, having Obliteration if you want to do mapping, being good at bossing, being good at Delirium mapping, being good at Simulacrums. It's just really, really strong build as long as you give it a good arena to fight in. Or, well, a map where you can't run that fast, but other builds can't even run it at that point, so running it slow is way better than not being able to run it at all. If I would be watching bosses as a solo, I think that would also be my top pick. The most recent guide I've seen for Poison Seismic Trap is from Zizaran. I think there are other guides that might be better, but I can currently only name Zizaran's as the most recent guide. Again, just pointing in one direction, not the best direction. Now we get to the top two builds, which I think, oh well, I say top two, I rather need to say last two builds, which I think are going to be very interesting for the upcoming league. Before I get to that, so very quickly, I would really, really appreciate feedback to these kinds of videos, be it good or bad feedback. I just want to be able to improve them, to better deliver the information in a more enjoyable and more interactive way with the viewer, and you in this case. So for that, I do appreciate every kind of feedback, and I will read every comment on this video and react if is needed. Alright, last two builds. Venom, Gyre, Deadeye. It's been a really good build last league, and with the nerfs to Elusive Nightblade interaction with Withering Step, I think Venom Gyre is going to be really good, and it's going to take the place of Lightning Strike. It has high armor, good evasion, access to spell suppression, elemental avoidance, elusive, has life on hit, life leech, using claw, just a really strong survivability package. Even on a Deadeye, it has absorbed mobility with whirling blades, with tailwind, has additional projectiles, has free chain. Once you get an awakened Pohx, the clear of this is going to be absorbed. There was a nerf, sure. It has about 20 to 30% less average damage, but it still can reach the high damage. So it still can burst down bosses if used correctly, which means it's still good for running invitations, still good to get your first bosses down, and then can just get into mapping, get Wall Venom Gyre, which, if you haven't seen it, check it out. Wall Venom Gyre is absurd. Either, as far as I've seen it, either it's going to give you infinite charges on your on the catch blades for using with whirling blades, or it gives you a big amount of whirling blades Venom Gyre charges. So if you get to a Legion, a Harbinger, an Abyss, a Breach, activate it, and then just whirling blades dodge everything they throw at you until everything's dead. Wonderful. Just, it looks really amazing. Also, something that I want to point out, there might be a potential of Poison Venom Gyre being really good as well, and I will check it out later into the league, and I will make a video about it if I end up checking it out. But I think for now, the elemental version Venom Gyre from Kobeblackmamba is still the best variant out there of Venom Gyre, and it's definitely going to be a really good league starter. The only thing I still need to mention here is that because of the nerfs to Spectral Helix, you might need to level with Frostblade, which got buffed, and feels fairly good for leveling as far as I've tested it. Alright, getting to the last pick, the one I'm most excited about to mention again, Caustic Arrow, Toxic Rain, Raider. Now, there are people that say Trickster, people that say Pathfinder, people that say Raider. But overall, before I get into those, just a really, really strong league starter. It's been one of the top league starter and been kind of pushed down because of a few nerfs, and Poisonous Concoction took its place. But I think it's back because there is a buff to Despair, there is the buff to Caustic Arrow, meaning Wall Caustic Arrow, and especially for the Forbidden Sanctum League, it's going to be really strong, being a super fast build, not having to rely on flasks. and then having Flask on top as a conditional mobility, just going to be really strong. Now, for those that say Trickster is the best, I think that is true if you want to go for Delirium. Delirium has two very annoying things: a huge amount of damage reduction and mobility reduction. Trickster can avoid the mobility reduction and has enough time to kill stuff. As long as he can consistently kill small stuff, he can tank pretty much anything there is. Also, he has the Ascendency node for taking less damage, and he gets additional frenzy charges, meaning he's very quick on his feats, as well as very quick on the attacks. For this, let's say Pathfinder, there are two main reasons to go Pathfinder. Infinite Flasks that give you a bit of attack speed and movement speed, and the free AoE and Chaos more damage. Now, the node that gives the AoE and the more Chaos damage is actually fairly cheap on Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flash. So going Raider and having a super buffed Onslaught, as well as a more chance to evade, as well as easy access to the avoidance that you can later respec once you have it on your gear into the frenzy charges to be even faster on your feet, is just a really good way to make this build, because it has a good baseline. It can get the AoE and the more chaos damage easily with Forbidden Flame, Forbidden Flash jewels, and then still use the Flask as optional buffs, so you could have a mobility Flask and then be even faster. Just going to be a really zoomy build, and it's even strong. It can easily clear Legion, especially now with Wall Caustic Arrow. Just placing it on everywhere, and the Legion just pops very, very quickly. It's almost like cutting with a hot knife through butter. You can have an amazing single target with your Toxic Rain using Mirage Archer, or not using it. That's preferred for some people. You can get additional projectiles, and on all of that, you can even swap your Caustic Arrow out for a Toxic Rain Ballista. So yeah, then have Toxic Rain Ballista, then have Toxic Rain, then have Toxic Rain Mirage Archer. In any stationary boss is just going to melt away in the dot. I've seen many, many times Toxic Rain just cap out a damage, filling the integer, I think it's a 32-bit integer, and enemies are just there and being like, yeah, I'm not going to take any damage anymore, you gave me too much damage. Really, really strong build, really happy to see it buffed. I think it's going to be enjoyable for a lot of people, especially because it has also a very, very good campaign. I'm going to put a path of building for this in the guide. I'm not going in the description. I'm not going to make a full guide. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I don't have the time to make a full video for that, as I don't have the full footage for this. But I know how to make the POB, and I'm going to get the POB approved by my buddy, who is a really, really good damage over time player. That she just plays damage over time builds all the time and knows especially well how to make a Toxic Rain build. So I'm going to make a POB, I'm going to get it approved by her, and I'm going to put it in the description for you to check it out. Alright, all that, you should now really be well set to choose your league starter for the upcoming league. And again, if not from this video, maybe because you saw the giving maybe directive how to set your mindset to choose a league starter, all that combined should make a really well league start for you. Now, one final thing, I'm going to put a video there as soon as it's uploaded, as soon as we have the atlas about top league start strategy. So if you're interested, maybe leave a subscription on the channel and check that video out as soon as it's out. All that being said, have a wonderful day, and hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye.